Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lab Manager's Product and Action webinar series. My name is Krista Grant, and I will be moderating this discussion. Automate and Accelerate, Transform Your Sample Prep with SPE-LV6. We like our webinars to be very interactive, so we encourage you to submit your questions at any point during today's webinar. Our speaker will address these questions during the question and answer session following his presentation. To ask a question or leave a comment, simply type your query into the Q&A box located on the right-hand side of your screen. We will try to address as many questions as possible during our time together. If we happen to run out of time, I will forward any unanswered questions to our speaker and he can respond to you directly if possible. I would like to remind you that this webinar recording will be available on demand shortly following this presentation. So please watch for an email from Lab Manager on how to access this free video once it becomes available. I would also like to invite you to visit the handout sections for more information about this presentation. Finally, I would like to extend a special thank you to our sponsor, Advion Intersheim Scientific. Their support allows Lab Manager to keep these webinars free of charge for our readers. With that, I would like to introduce our presenter for this webinar, Benjamin Punier, Product Manager Instrumentation with Advion Intersheim Scientific. Benjamin, thank you for joining us today.
Hello, everybody. So thank you for joining this webinar for this presentation of the SPE-LV6 for sample preparation. Today, I will show you the main advantages of the system and how you can use this system inside your labs to simplify your sample preparation in your labs. First of all, as you can see, this system is very compact. So you can use and set easily your system inside the lab, on the table, on the bench, or inside the fume hood. Thanks to this system, you have the possibility to purify a sample volume from 100 microliters up to 5 liters. So we have many different possibilities of application like toxicology, environment, agro-food, and other applications to use SP columns or other type of sorbent. First, as you can see here, we have a touchscreen. This touchscreen uses a software developed by Advion Intersheim Scientific. Thanks to this touchscreen, we have the possibility to program your methods, your parameters like the collection rack, the sample rack, the column size, and create different methods, especially, for example, if you work in R&D development, you have the possibility to create different methods and start around with 6 different methods. For the column size, here we have 6 different positions. We work one by one to be sure that we have the higher efficiency position per position. Here we have a configuration for SP columns 6 ml. If you want to use different size of columns, we have different accessories available. Example, here, if you want to use SP columns 1 ml, we have a specific adapters that you put in the black supports of the SPE-LV6, and we have the possibility to use this type of columns. We have also SP columns 3 ml with an adapters, and if you want to use SP columns 6 ml, you don't need to use an adapter because you can put directly inside the systems. And we have another possibility is to use FPLC columns 1 ml. Why this column is important is especially for desalting, for example, or for protein and peptide purification. So for these ones, we have another adapters. Example, I want to use SP columns 3 ml. I take my adapters and I can change, for example, this position and convert with the SP columns 3 ml. And thanks to these adapters, you have the possibility to plug your plunger, your adapters inside your columns. And why is it important to have this type of adapters? Like this one. So we developed these adapters to be sure that you have a universal adapters for all column size. For example, here we have for one level it's for 1 ml columns, another one it's for 3 ml columns, and the last position is for 6 ml columns. And for it, we have just to use this type of fittings, you screw, and you put your tubings inside the adapters to load sample and solvent through the sorbent. That's why with this one, you can use various column size for your purification. About accessory, we have different possibility to collect your elution because thanks to this system, you have the possibility to collect your elution fraction in a waste container, in different container like organic, halogenated, or aqueous, like this one. So here you have different lines for halogenated, organic, and for the autosampler and aqueous waste. That's why you save a lot of money, especially to treat your waste inside your labs. And how we collect this elution fraction, we have these special tools integrated inside the systems. So the column stay on different position. So here, for example, you have organic, aqueous, and halogenated. So 3 different tanks according to the waste container. And the elution fraction go directly here, and we have a tubing link to the waste container. If you want to collect your elution fraction inside a tubes, we have different collection rack available. Example, here we have a collection rack for test tubes with an external diameter of 13 millimeters with up to 5 tubes. So especially if you want to collect, for example, the waste, the washing step or the elution step or different fraction, you have the possibility to collect up to 5 tubes per sample. That's why for R&D it's very important to check your molecules recovery for each step. And here you have these tools that I show you to collect the waste container. So when you put your tubes here, you have just to place your rack here. And for the tube size, we have different part number according to the collection tubes that you want. Example, here you can use this type of vials with a capacity up to 60 ml. We have test tubes. So the main test tubes that you can use sometimes for some preparation, it's a 13 or 16 millimeters for the external diameters. And we have the possibility to use small vials. With the small vials, you can collect up to 5 vials per sample, especially to control your purification. And another size that you can use, it's Eppendorf tubes, so centrifuge tubes. Even if you have the caps, you have the possibility to put the centrifuge tubes inside your collection rack. So different possibility to collect your fraction according to your methods. How we will load the sample? With the system, we have different possibility. First possibility, if you have a sample volume range from 100 microliters up to 10 ml, we have an autosampler integrated inside the system. So here you have the needle, and the needle will take your sample inside a rack. So here you have a rack with a 6 position linked to each position that you have here. That's why you have different number like 1 to 6, which correspond to the position on your system. We can use test tubes, classic test tube that you can have inside your labs, but you have another possibility to use this type of vials with a screw and a septa inside the caps. That's why, for example, if you want to protect your sample from cross-contamination that you can have with the external product, you can put this screw like a vials for your autosampler, and you place your rack here, and the nozzle will take your sample inside the tubes. How to avoid a cross-contamination between each sample? Very easy. The system is automatic. The system will clean your nozzle before and after sample loading to avoid the cross-contamination between each sample, which is a very important point, especially when you use this type of system. As I said, we can load a sample volume up to 5 liters. So with autosampler, we can't put a bottle of 5 liters. So to be sure that our system is available for environmental analysis, especially for water analysis, we have another option, the large volume mode on the software. And when we use the large volume on the software, we will use these tubings. And these tubings, we have 6 different tubings linked to each position. That's why we have different line indication. And you put your sample just here. So for example, here, you can use these very nice tools to plug your tubing and to be sure that your sample line is at the bottom of your sample flask. Example here, I have 6 positions. And in this case, we will use 4 different solvents. The other case, if I use the autosampler, I can use 10 different solvents. So different possibility. 4 solvents is enough, especially for water analysis, for example. That's why the system will configure automatically your line here, depending if you want to use the autosampler for small volumes or large volumes, like 1 liter, for example, with these tubings. And for solvent, we can put your lines inside the bottle. So for example, here I use a safety caps to protect the user, especially if you work outside the fume hood. So with a valve to protect from the vapor of solvent. And my system will load each solvent according to your methods. Here, as you can see, I have different containers which correspond to waste, aqueous, organic, and halogenated, because with this system, all is automatic, especially to avoid all risk of cross-contamination. That's why the system will clean each time your system with different solvent, and all is automatic, so you have nothing to program inside your software. So for the purification, here I put 6 columns, 6 mLs, and my goal is to separate. Here I have a sample, for example, it's a green sample, and it's a mix today, just to show you a purification. So here, for example, it's my impurities, so it's a food colors, and here it's my blue colors. So I mix 2 drops of different colors to have my sample, and my goal for this purification is to have the blue colors. So very easy to start your methods. You have the pen to control your software. Here we have 2 different modes for the software. So normal mode is more for R&D development, with the possibility to mix the column size, to mix the methods on each 6 position. For this case, I will use the only one method for all positions, same column size. That's why I will use the mode cascade. And when I will program my software, all the parameters of my column number 1 will be automatically duplicated for all the positions. To create and to select my parameters, I just need to click on column, and I will select my column size, 1 ml, 3 ml, or 6 ml. In this case, I use 6 ml. I select my collection rack size. So here I have 4 test tubes with an external diameter of 13 millimeters. So I select the rack and I select how I will use my system with a large volume for bigger volumes, or I will use the auto sampler. For this case, I use the large volume because I don't use the auto sampler. Parameters are ready. I have a menu to purge my solvent lines. So I can select for each line that I have on the right side of the system my waste way, so aqueous, organic, or halogenated. And I have the list of solvent or different names that I can create for all my methods. So I have a specific menu inside the software to create a list of solvent name. So this one is more to remove the air from your line, especially when you change your solvent bottles. To start my methods, it's very easy. For example, here, I have already created my methods. I double click on my methods, and here I have all of my methods with the condition step, load, wash, drying step, important step between the washing step and the dilution step, because I will remove the water from the sorbent to avoid a mix of water and methanol inside my collection tubes. And here I click on my sample queue to select how many positions I will use. For example, here I will use all the position, so 1 to 6, and you can mix the position. My system is ready. I click on start. My system will give you the time to purify all my sample, just here, and I have the quantity of solvent that I need for the purification and the automatic step of rinsing for all the position. Another possibility, for example, you are at the end of the day and you want to purify your sample during the night. So you have this option with a delayed time. So you have just to put how many hours or minutes that you want to wait before to start your system. So for example, if I want to start my methods, my system will start at 2 in the night. So I have just to put the delayed time, and you have a countdown. After this countdown, the system will start the purification. That's why when you will arrive in the morning, your system just finish your elution fractions. So I click on start, and the system start the purification. As you can see, and as you can hear, especially, you have no noises. Especially in the lab, sometimes you have different instruments, and sometimes it's very difficult due to the noises. So here you have no noises, and all is automatic. So you have just to click on start, and on the software, you will have a countdown which indicate which position you use. At the end, you have just to save your report, because at the end of the purification, you have the possibility to record a report for each position, especially for your quality control, and follow your sample, especially if you want to inject after in HPLC or in GC. You have the possibility to have a report to put with the sample up to the final analysis. And my system will inject solvent sample thanks to a syringe pump inside. And as you can see here, for example, my system is collecting the solvent methanol in organic waste. So all is automatic. You have nothing to control. That's why, thanks to this system, you will save a lot of time inside your labs and your activity to create different application and to prepare your sample. That's why this system is a right alternative, for example, with a vacuum manifold. With this type of instrument, the main problem it's a manual. So you have to stay in front of your system and inject manually. So it's not really secure for the user because you are in front of your solvents, you have no security. And the result is very higher with the system because we have a specific 3D chart inside the system to be sure that we have the higher reproducibility and efficiency for the solvent and sample loading. And we have different documentation and different customer feedback to explain that the system grants the higher result that you can have for this type of instrument. So here, my system is in the condition step, so we load the water, and for example, here, my system is collecting inside the aqueous waste container. And you can control the flow rate. So here, as you can see, you have the drop of solvent pass through the columns, through the sorbent to activate your SPE columns. And you can control with the software, with each line of your method, you can control the flow rate, and the flow rate from 50 microliters per minute up to 15 ml per minute. That's why, for example, if you want to use this type of columns, it's not a silica often. Sometimes you have a mix of different solvent and a specific sorbent, and you can put a very low, you set a very low flow rate to avoid to compact your sorbent inside the columns. Once I have finished my elution fractions, we have different other possibility, because when you finish your collections, often you have to evaporate your collection tubes. So that's why you take your test tubes, and here we have different possibility to evaporate your elution fractions. Here you have an evaporator, it's a gas blowdown. So we have a vortex of nitrogen or air compressed to evaporate the solvent inside the tube. So you have just to open the lid, you put your tube inside, you hit the bath, and you inject nitrogen or air compressed, and you control the gas. Here you can go up to 90 positions. We have many possibilities to evaporate different tubes. And we have this other solution, is a perfect solution to combine with the SPE-LV6, because we have 6 different positions. You have just to fix the level of your nozzle inside the tube. So sometimes you can keep a gap of 2 centimeters between the surface of your solvent and the bottom of your nozzle. And thanks to these adapters here, you put your tubes inside the aluminum blocks. You put here, you hit the aluminum blocks according to your molecule, the sensitivity of your molecule, the temperatures, and I regulate with each valve the gas flow for each position. So it's individual. So it's the perfect solution, especially to link with the SPE-LV6. When you check our methods, here, for example, as you can see here, I have the waste way. Aqueous, it's A, O organic, H halogenated. It's a waste container. And here I have all the possibility to collect my collection tubes. So here, for example, I'm loading the sample through the columns with a flow rate at 50 ml per minute. And the software indicates that the system is purified the sample on the position 1. And once I have finished the position 1, the position 2 come here. And at the end, my position 6 is here. And I have my columns in red that indicate that I have finished my purification. I have just to save my reports. And how you can export your reports is very easy. You use a USB key. You connect your USB key. You have 2 different ports here to connect your USB key. You download your report or method inside the USB key, and you can put inside your computer to print, for example, your report on paper. Other solution, you have an offline version of the software. So when you have the system, you have software offline. So you have just to put your software on your computer, and you have the possibility to create your method on your computer. You take your USB key, you connect on the panel, and you can download directly your methods that you have programmed on the computer directly on your system. So it's very easy to create method, especially if you have different users on the same system, to avoid to stay in front of this system and to create different methods. You can run different methods on computer and take for each user your USB key to load your method on the computer. So very easy to use, higher efficiency, and if you have any questions, we can provide different documentation, technical documentation, to show you the main advantages, especially for the reproducibility. We have application, especially for peptides, for proteins. So you have different customers tested and use this system and send us different information to explain that the system change the life inside the labs. And it's a very, very compact, as you can see. If you compare with other system, sometimes you don't have enough space inside the fume hood or on the bench. Here, it's a perfect solution, especially if you work manually, the system inside your labs. I'm checking my methods. I'm drying my SP columns. So here, I wash my columns with water to remove impurities. So my impurities come directly inside the waste container. And I will collect my blue color, which correspond to the elution fractions inside the sample. Example, if you want to collect the washing step, for example, if you want to check the impurities, the concentration of your impurity to be sure that you don't have the molecule of interest inside your washing steps, I have the possibility to indicate in my method that I want to collect the washing step in a test tubes in the rack. That's allow to control the washing step and to be sure that we have the higher recovery for elution fraction. That's why for many users which use the vacuum manifold manually, the problem you will have different problem of recovery for efficiency. That's why with this system, you are sure that your results are very good compared to this type of instrument, and to save time, especially because the time is very important inside the labs, especially if you want to create other methods. And if you have different methods inside your labs and you want to know exactly how many samples you can purify with one system inside your labs, you can send us an email with your methods, and we have the possibility to send you a report to explain how many samples you can purify with this system per day. That allow to control your sample throughput. So here, my system is collecting my elution fractions. My system will try to increase my recovery of the molecule of interest. So for example, for these steps, we have different documents which indicate that you have this drying step, and thanks to this technology, you can remove up to 95% of waters inside your solvent. And why it's important to dry and to remove much as possible of waters inside your sample, is especially when you put your sample tubes inside a concentrator to evaporate, to concentrate your sample. If you have water, you have to increase the temperature to evaporate your samples, your elution fraction. That's why with this drying step, you will save a lot of time for the concentration step, and you can reduce by 50% the evaporation times at the end of your process. So for example, here I have my elution fractions, my blue colors. I can put in the concentrators to have a residue of my molecules of interest. I put inside the vials, and I take directly the vials I put inside a sampler. Very easy. Just click on Start. Different documentation to help you. We have the Advient Interchim scientific supports to help you, especially to create your methods, to acquire the most important knowledge to use the system. And if you need a specific demonstration, we have the possibility to come with the system inside your labs to purify your sample and to check your result. And we are free to help you with our video room to do a live demonstration more specifically. So my system will continue. This is the end of the presentation. So thank you for to be here for this presentation. And if you have any questions, I available to give answer to your questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Benjamin. So as mentioned, we are ready to move into the question and answer portion of this webinar. A reminder for those of you who may have joined us late, you can send in your questions or comments by typing them into the Q&A box located on the right-hand side of your screen. Another reminder to please visit the handout section on the right-hand side of your screen as well for supporting information for this event. So let's start with our first question from the audience. Okay, why do you use calibrated tubings?
Good questions. Because if you don't use a calibrated tubing, the problem is the dead volume. If we don't control your dead volume inside this type of system, you are sure that you don't have the right reproducibility, especially when you load the solvent or the sample. That's why inside the system, all the tubing are calibrated inside your manufacturer based in France to be sure that you control the dead volume and to have the higher reproducibility and result for your methods.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so the next question is the adapter for SPE columns 1 milliliter, 3 milliliter, and 6 milliliter compatible with all SPE column brands?
Yeah, it's compatible with all SPE brands. So all the brand of SPE that you can find in different laboratories are available. And for example, here we have different size of columns, SPE columns, because SPE columns intershim, because we have a brand Advion Intershim Scientifique SPE columns with different size. So if you need documentation, we can send you, or you can download our catalog on your website to check our SPE brands.
Okay, great. So it looks like we have one more question for you, Benjamin. So it says, do you use gas to push the solvent through the sorbent?
No, for this system, we control the flow rate. Why we don't use the gas to push the solvent? Because the problem, when you load the sample or your solvent inside your columns, if you push with gas, we have a lot of risk to dry your sorbent and to change the interaction of your molecule of interest with the sorbent. That's why when you load the sample or the solvent through the columns, it's a liquid flow and it's not a gas flow to push the solvent or the sample through the sorbent.
Okay, great. So that looks like that was the final question. So this does bring us to the end of the webinar. I would like to thank Benjamin for all of the hard work that he put into today's presentation, and I would like to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. And thank you again to our sponsor, Advion. Their support allows Lab Manager to keep these webinars free of charge for our readers. Oh, sorry, Benjamin, I actually see that we had one more question pop in. Are you okay if I do
Yeah.
ask that? Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, so it says, is there any specific washing procedure between sample sets extracted?
No, we don't have a specific because you have the possibility to select and to create your washing step depending of the sample. That's why you have a lot of flexibility with the software to select the sample that you want to use to clean your sample lines, for example, if you want to start another run with the next sample, for example.
Okay, great. We did have another question come in, so thank you. So sorry here. It says, so it is positive system, we can say. So what is the max pressure for cartridge?
The max pressure, we don't have a detector of pressure, but it's more of flow rate. So the maximum flow rate that you can use for this system, it's a 50 ml per minute that you can create pressure, and the pressure depends of the sorbent. Even if you have a problem of pressure, for example, the system will stop your system, your purification methods, especially to avoid to create some problem inside the system. So for the pressure, you don't have a specific pressure to use with the system.
Okay, great. Thank you again for taking the time to answer those last two questions that came in. So this does conclude the webinar. If you do have any further questions, feel free to send them in and we can connect you with Benjamin. As well, in the handout section, we do have a document that Advion has provided that you can download. So take a peek. And sorry, we have one more question, Benjamin. It says, did we have the pressure sensor?
No, we don't have a pressure sensor. The only thing that you have inside the system is with a syringe pump. For example, if you have too much pressure inside your columns, the syringe pump will stop automatically the methods. Why? Because it's to avoid to break your syringe pump due to the pressure. So it's a safety. We don't have a sensor, but we have a specific electronic cards to control this.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'm just going to put it out there. Is there any other questions that anyone has? And if not, put them in and we'll connect you with Benjamin and Advion, and we'll go from there. So thank you everybody for taking the time today, and we hope that you will join us again.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much.